On the 12th of August in the year 1570, in the chambers of the Kremlin Palace in Moscow, Tsar Ivan IV ordered that a rival prince be brought before the court. The nobleman's crime was alleged conspiracy against the Tsar. But the punishment Ivan had devised was neither swift execution nor imprisonment. Instead, the prince was publicly stripped before the entire court, including noble women. He was then castrated by executioners, while Ivan watched and commented sarcastically. The nobleman was forced to parade naked through the streets of Moscow before finally being executed. This combination of humiliation, bodily violation, and public degradation was characteristic of Ivan, but he was far from unique in history. Throughout the centuries, multiple monarchs invented punishments that combined physical cruelty with humiliation of an intimate nature, using their victims' bodies and dignity as instruments of political terror. These punishments were not merely about causing pain or death, but about completely breaking the victim through violation and shame, creating an example so horrifying that no one would dare challenge royal authority. This is the story of the kings who invented punishments of an intimate nature for their enemies, practices that reveal the darkest aspects of absolute power when combined with calculated cruelty and an obsession with total domination. This story is presented by script historians. Ivan IV ruled Russia from the year 1547 until his death in the year 1584. The second half of his reign, after the death of his first wife Anastasia in the year 1560, was marked by growing paranoia and extreme cruelty. Ivan created the Oprytnina, a state within a state governed by his black personal guard, the Oprytniki. These men possessed absolute authority and committed atrocities in the Tsar's name. Heinrich von Staden, a German mercenary who served as an Oprichnik, wrote detailed memoirs of Ivan's practices. According to von Staden, Ivan not only ordered tortures, but frequently participated personally. One of his favourite punishments for nobles suspected of disloyalty was public castration. The victim would be bound in a square or in the Kremlin itself, and executioners would remove his organs while the court watched. Ivan allegedly mocked the victims during the process, asking if they were now loyal or making obscene comments. In some cases documented by Russian chroniclers, Ivan forced the wives of executed nobles to be presented at court, where they were publicly stripped and humiliated before being sent to convents or distributed among the Oprichniki. During the sacking of Novgorod in January of the year 1570, chroniclers record that Ivan ordered the city's women to be publicly violated as collective punishment for Novgorod's alleged support of Ivan's enemies. The Tsar himself reportedly watched these atrocities from an elevated platform. Ivan's logic seemed to be that humiliation of an intimate nature was more effective than simple death for terrorizing the population. He wanted victims and their families to suffer not only physically but psychologically, with public shame that destroyed all dignity and family honor. Al-Hakim bi-Amr Allah was the sixth Fatimid caliph governing Egypt from the year 996 until the year 1021 AD. He's remembered as one of the most eccentric and cruel rulers in Islamic history. Al-Hakim issued bizarre decrees and elaborate punishments for those who violated them. One of his strangest edicts forbade women from leaving their homes entirely. To enforce this, he ordered cobblers to stop making women's shoes. Women caught outside their homes were publicly stripped and whipped in the streets of Cairo as a warning. Contemporary Arab chroniclers such as Ibn al-Qalanisi documented that Al-Hakim also had an obsession with controlling his subjects' intimate behaviour. He banned the manufacture and sale of certain foods he considered stimulants. Merchants caught selling these items were publicly castrated in the marketplace. Al-Hakim allegedly believed that by removing transgressors' reproductive capacity, he was purifying society. In another documented case, Al-Hakim ordered that a man accused of looking at a woman inappropriately be castrated and then forced to wear women's clothing and work in the market as a woman for the rest of his life. This punishment combined mutilation with gender humiliation, forcing the victim to live in a state of constant shame. Al-Hakim also punished political adversaries in elaborate ways. When he discovered a conspiracy among some of his viziers, he did not execute them immediately. First, he forced them to be publicly stripped and paraded through Cairo mounted backward on donkeys, a humiliating position. Then, they were castrated and only then executed. Al-Hakim disappeared mysteriously in the year 1021 during one of his nocturnal walks, probably assassinated, possibly by his own sister, weary of his tyranny. Louis XI, known as the Universal Spider for his political intrigues, ruled France from the year 1461 until the year 1483. Though he was an astute politician who consolidated royal power, Louis was also cruel toward his enemies. Philippe de Comines, a chronicler who served Louis, documented several of his inventive punishments. Louis had iron cages built that were so small prisoners could neither stand upright nor lie down completely. Nobles who betrayed him were placed in these cages for months or years. But beyond confinement, Louis added an element of humiliation. Prisoners were kept in cages in public places where the population could see and mock them. Some prisoners were forced to wear only undergarments or were completely naked. Cardinal Jean Ballieu, who conspired against Louis, was kept in an iron cage for 11 years, from the year 1469 until the year 1480. According to Comines, Ballieu was periodically stripped and exhibited as part of his punishment. Louis also used forced marriages as punishment. When he captured enemy nobles, he sometimes forced their daughters or widows to marry men of a low social status, peasants or merchants, destroying family honour through degrading marriage. In one case, Louis forced the daughter of a rebel duke to marry the royal executioner, a profession considered completely unworthy for nobility. The woman was forced to consummate the marriage under supervision to ensure the union was valid, adding a layer of humiliation and violation. This practice served a dual purpose. It punished the family through dishonour and also produced loyalty from the lower-class husband, who received an unexpected social elevation. Herod Dvam ruled Judea as a client king of Rome from the year 37 until the year 4 BC, known for grandiose construction projects including the expansion of the Second Temple. Herod was also a brutal paranoid. Flavius Josephus, a Jewish Roman historian, extensively documented Herod's cruelties. When Herod suspected his wife Mariamne was of infidelity, he ordered an elaborate investigation. Her servants were tortured, and according to Josephus, the interrogation included humiliations of an intimate nature to extract confessions. When Mariam was declared guilty based on testimony obtained under torture, Herod ordered her execution in the year 29 BC. But before that, she was publicly humiliated. Josephus relates that Herod forced Mariam to present herself before the court, where explicit accusations about her alleged intimate conduct were read with degrading details. Herod also punished political enemies in ways that attacked families. When he executed nobles for treason, he frequently forced wives and daughters to be handed over to soldiers before being killed as well. Josephus mentions a case where Herod ordered that a conspirator's entire family be publicly violated in the Jerusalem theatre as a punishment spectacle before executions. This combination of public violence and the intimate nature of humiliation was calculated for maximum terror. Herod wanted the population to see that defying the king resulted not only in death, but in total destruction of family honour and dignity. Vlad III ruled Wallachia in 3 periods during the 15th century, most famous for his reign from the year 1456 until the year 1462. Though known primarily for impalement, a practice where victims were pierced with stakes that passed through the body, Vlad also used impalement specifically as punishment of an intimate nature. Saxon chronicles from Transylvania and German pamphlets printed shortly after Vlad's death described that he frequently ordered women accused of intimate crimes, such as adultery or prostitution, to be impaled specifically through their intimate areas. The stake was inserted in a particular way to maximize humiliation beyond pain. In an account from a German manuscript of the year 1488, Vlad allegedly ordered that a rival nobleman's mistress be impaled and displayed naked at the castle entrance as a warning. The combination of forced nudity, violation by the stake, and public exhibition created a spectacle of terror that went beyond simple execution. Vlad also punished treason elaborately. When Ottoman ambassadors refused to remove their turbans in his presence, he ordered the turbans to be nailed to their heads with nails. But for traitors from his own court, punishments were more elaborate. A boy accused of adultery with another nobleman's wife was castrated, and his organs were forced into his mouth before being impaled. Vlad personally supervised these punishments and allegedly ate during executions, demonstrating a coldness that terrorized his subjects. Muhammad bin Tughlaq ruled the Delhi Sultanate from the year 1325 until the year 1351. He's remembered by historians as a brilliant but erratic ruler whose cruelty was as notable as his reforms. Ibn Battuta, a Moroccan traveller who served at Tughlaq's court for years, wrote extensively about the Sultan's practices. Battuta documented that Tughlaq invented elaborate punishments for rebels and those who displeased him. A favourite punishment was forcing the condemned to wear donkey skin and then be paraded through the city of Delhi, while the population was encouraged to mock and spit. For crimes considered more serious, Tughlaq added elements of an intimate nature. Battuta reported the case of a provincial governor who rebelled, was captured, and brought to Delhi. Tughlaq ordered that the governor be publicly stripped, his clothes burned, and then he was mounted backward on a donkey, a humiliating position, while being paraded. After the parade, the governor was publicly castrated before final execution. In another case, Battuta personally witnessed, Tughlaq suspected that one of his courtiers was having an affair with a woman from the royal harem. The courtier was forced to undress and was publicly whipped on his intimate parts before being executed. The woman was stoned to death, but first was forced to witness her lover's execution. Tughlaq justified these punishments as necessary to maintain order and morality, but modern historians see them as manifestations of paranoia and cruelty from an increasingly unstable ruler. Henry VIII ruled England from the year 1509 until the year 1547. Though famous for his 6 marriages and break with Rome, Henry also used marriage as a tool of punishment and control. When he desired a woman at court who was married, he sometimes forced the annulment of her marriage and then took her as mistress or wife. Anne Boleyn, his second wife, was executed under fabricated charges of adultery in May of the year 1536. But before her execution, she was subjected to a public trial where extremely explicit details of her alleged intimate relations were read in open court. This was deliberately humiliating, forcing the Queen to hear degrading accusations before the entire court. Catherine Howard, his 5th wife, suffered a similar fate in the year 1542. Her trial included detailed testimonies about her intimate behaviour before and during marriage to Henry. Chroniclers at the time noted that the explicit nature of the accusations was unusual and seemed designed for maximum humiliation. Henry also controlled his subjects' marriages. When Lord Thomas Seymour secretly married Catherine Parr, Henry's widow, without royal permission, Henry was furious. Though he did not punish Catherine directly, he created an environment of fear where everyone knew that marriages without royal approval could result in terrible consequences. Daughters of nobles who displeased Henry were sometimes forced into marriages with men Henry specifically chose to humiliate the family, men who were old, poor, or of questionable reputation. Al-Mustansir Billah was an Abbasid caliph who ruled nominally from the year 1226 until the year 1242 AD. Though real power was in the hands of Seljuk sultans, however, Al-Mustansir maintained religious and judicial authority in Baghdad. Arab chroniclers of the time documented that he applied Islamic law particularly severely for intimate crimes. Adultery was punishable by stoning according to Sharia, but Al-Mustansir added layers of humiliation. The condemned were first forced to confess publicly in the main mosque, describing their acts in explicit details. Then they were stripped and paraded through Baghdad streets to the execution site. This parade could last hours, maximizing public shame. Ibn al-Athir, a contemporary historian, mentioned that al-Mustansir ordered that a man accused of sodomy be not only executed but first publicly castrated, then burned alive. The execution was conducted in the central square with the entire population summoned to watch. Al-Mustansir saw these elaborate public punishments as a way to demonstrate religious authority and deter sin, but the effect was to terrorize the population